Hello, and welcome to episode 9. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, hit the bell so you get a notification when new episodes are released, and why not come and join the Facebook group and get involved in the conversation. You'll have to excuse my crow in the background. I'm sat in my cabin, but I've got the door open because it's such a beautiful morning. So I just thought I'd let the birds in and they can come and be part of the podcast today. So this week I'm joined by Bruce Dickinson, co-founder of WaterBear College of Music. Bruce is very much cut from the rock and roll cloth, and I just felt it was really important to give voice to that perspective in our music education. Bruce was also co-founder of BIM, but he realised that machine was somehow out of his control because it was growing so fast, and he left in 2012, returned to his band Little Angels for a download festival and then a subsequent tour. But Bruce just felt that he really wanted to contribute more to music education and create another opportunity. And so in 2018, with Adam Bushell, they set up WaterBear College of Music. I love the name WaterBear. If you don't know, the water bear is a tardigrade, tiny creature, which is said to be one of the most resilient creatures in our known universe. That which is really nice. We love resilience. So we talk about reality shows, resilience, as I said, and also the reality of portfolio careers. Bruce and I are very similar ages. I think we started in the music business around the same kind of time. And so it was great for me to hear Bruce's take on all this. Unfortunately, Bruce's internet had crashed just before we did the interview, so I wasn't able to see Bruce. All the other interviews I've either done in person or over Zoom. So we did the good old-fashioned telephone interview. So I give you Bruce Dickinson.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No, pleasure. Thanks for joining. So, it's a shame we can't see each other, but I mean, it's
never mind.
One of them one of them things.
Well, it will make the best of it. That's one of the secrets of a career in music, anyway.
It totally is. Yeah, you work with what you got.
Yeah, exactly. So
fantastic. Yeah. So you co-founded BIM in 2001. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, before that, I was running ACM in Guildford.
Yeah.
Pete Anderton and Phil Brooks, and I met Adam Bushell, who's also one of the founders of WaterBear, back in the mid-90s, so the Britpop era.
Yeah.
And we had this idea that a lot of music education was angled towards technique and sort of dexterity and impressive sort of gymnastics at that time.
Yeah.
And what we saw was a lot of graduates who were very hard to employ as a consequence, and things like they couldn't often play in time, music graduates, they weren't recordable because they'd been sort of led down the wrong path a little bit, and there's an element of fun with that kind of technical stuff when you're young. It's an enjoyable thing and you can measure your success kind of stuff. But we had this idea in the 90s that we wanted to make it a little bit more vocational, sort of practical and more linked to industry. And then when ACM started getting big, it wasn't my college, and there was a very interest back then in the TV shows, which was just starting The Voice and X Factor and stuff.
Yeah. And
philosophically, I was very, very at the other end of the spectrum because that's plugging into someone else's machine.
Sure.
In a kind of old kind of variety show type way, and I'm interested in artist power and artists kind of, designing their own future. So I settled BIM with 3 other guys, Damien Key's been one. And then that was 2001, and it just went like the clappers. Just sort of always just my idea was that just wanted to be the coolest offering as well, and just somewhere where people would want to be and want to hang, and it was a bit like it reminded me of like when I was in the band when I was younger. We did a couple of gigs. We did one gig actually with Guns N' Roses at the Marquee before it all kicked off, and then we watched that sort of subsequent explosion.
Yeah.
And BIM was like that. You couldn't stop it if you tried. And although I'd been a founder of it by 2005, I couldn't really control the huge growth. And we had investors and all this that had come in. And it was like just hang on to your coattails because it's growing all the time. And it became this huge entity. And I think it's became the biggest education provider for music at higher education in the world in terms of student numbers.
Wow.
Berkeley, would have a bigger turnover because their fees are so high in the States. But in terms of student numbers actually doing degrees, BIM was like by far the biggest entity, and still is, I think. But by 2011, so that sort of period, I was struggling with it because it's a very similar, lots of parallels to rock and roll, really, where people start doing something a bit garagey, but it's immensely cool and it's like, it's got substance, like Appetite for Destruction, back to the Guns N' Roses analogy. And then you look back 5 years later and there's backing singers and a white grand piano and, it's all overblown.
Yeah, sure.
Where's Welcome to the Jungle gone? Well, we've moved on from that and it's Guns N' Roses PLC, and to a degree, BIM did that. It became a huge, it awards its own degrees now, and it has thousands and thousands of students, 8,000, I think, and covers multiple subject areas beyond music,
Sure.
So for me, that's real success, and it was nice. It's always nice to be part of that. Another bit of that with the band, it comes around in your life. You're lucky if you get a situation like that once in your life,
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can appreciate the scale of it, and I like scale, but it's all about music, and floated around a bit consulting for other places, and then I looked at Adam Bushell, who had been in contact. Adam was the principal of BIM, and we were both consulting for a while, and I said, if you want to do something and affect real cultural change, you have to own it. We need to set up another college because the world has changed so much.
Yeah.
And that's why we sort of came around to, we need to set up WaterBear.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I just wanted to take you back to something you were saying right at the beginning, talking about that 90s thing with the explosion of the TV shows and just it sort of takes music away from kind of what it really is, and it suddenly becomes this competition, which anyone who loves music and plays music knows that is just, it's such an anathema to why we all started playing music in the first place.
I mean, I don't. It's not really. It's nothing to do with rock and roll, is it? It's light entertainment, and that's always been there.
Yeah, totally.
Through the 50s, 60s, 70s, that we all grew up with opportunity knocks and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I mean that most sincerely.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my decision making, I'm very guided by the spirit of rock and roll. There's certain types of jazz fusion that that I can really appreciate. But if it's cerebral, if it's like music based on a concept or a technical kind of approach or something, then it's a different thing. It doesn't mean it's not good. It doesn't mean it's not viable. There's loads of artistry, but for me, it comes down to rock and roll is a kind of philosophy of living your life on your own terms, hopefully in a kind of honourable and decent way. But that's what it stands for, and I know dinner ladies that are more rock and roll than people feel it's totally bad.
Totally.
It's about a way of thinking about life, really, and that's what I wanted for. It's that empowerment that you want for your music students. You want them to be able to design their own futures, And music education at its worst degenerates into the Simon Cowell model, where it goes, "Come to us, we'll get you into the music industry."
Yes.
Well, no one gets anyone in the music industry. You get yourself in, but you can provide the environment, the launchpad for that.
Yeah, sure.
Especially now.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a lot of the conversations I've been having as well have been about, how music sort of away from the sort of hard line of the industry, about how music is kind of real food for the soul and food for social change, food for personal change, empowerment, all those things that you're talking about, and it's that which is fundamentally so important with music, and realizing its absolute, its power and its beauty,
it is, and you can change people's lives, but also you this is why I love working in the degree and the master space, because you're dealing with grey area. Because music can really chew people up and spit them out the other side as well. And the transition that needs managing is where people go to music as a release from their problems. And then the temptation is to think, for a young person to think, well, this is great, I love it, this is going to be my life. And then when you replace music as a hobby, in inverted commas, music as a job, sometimes then music is the source of your anxieties, and your workload, your pressures and your competition, and maybe someone said bad stuff online about you and all that stuff, So that stuff, that resilience is, because it's a trap, that. And then when you get into bands that you're going, and it sometimes can be unhealthy and all that kind of stuff, people come out quite damaged, and the biggest of the success sometimes, it can be, as we know, it can be fatal. That this stuff. So yes, it can be all those amazing things, and it can still be that even when you do it for a living. But you've probably got to build in a way of thinking about professional music that allows you to thrive in it, rather than be beaten up by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for young people, it's at age 30. If you get through your late 20s and you're still playing music into your 30s, you'll probably be doing it forever. You've probably cracked it. And the most difficult time for young musicians is in the mid-20s, I think.
Yeah, sure.
When it's such a grind, you still got to establish yourself, and you're having to pay the rent and all that practical life stuff. Very tough period, that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of why I got into working in community arts as well. So you're sort of running the two things side by side, a professional music career and working in education and running workshops and just I forgot what the word is now.
Well, that's the classic model, though, Michael. Yeah. That's the portfolio career. That's what we teach you to do. That.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's right from the open day. Which is why the Simon Cowell TV stuff is not helpful, because it gives parents this idea of what a music industry is about, and it's all fantasy. It doesn't exist like that.
Yeah.
What we all do is what you and I do, and young musicians they're using the transferable skills, so they're very good at making content. They're very good at digital marketing.
Yeah.
So Brighton's full of professional drummers who also run video production companies at a high level, and they make great editors because they've got such good timing.
Absolutely.
And we've all got that equivalent skill set. And musicians, if you can make music work and you can run a band, you can run a business.
Sure.
And there's this rise of sort of responsible enterprise where people are looking for sustainable ways of working, and not damaging the environment, not damaging other people, and being inclusive, but still wanting to do exciting things and get things done, and you're still having to use the machinery of late stage capitalism. You have to get your investors, and you have to get your crowdfunding sorted out, or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
Sign a record deal sometimes. Not very often these days is that useful, but you've got to deal with finance and do it in a creative way.
Yeah.
So for modern creatives, the business side is just someone like Jack White, for example. His business activity is just as interesting and creative as his music output.
Yeah,
you've got to be a stylist, you've got to be a business person, you've got to be a music producer. And
it's a huge skill set.
It is, but it's exciting.
It is exciting.
And it makes you employable. Makes you employable.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that those transferable skills. I think it's really nice that you focus on that. And what about sort of resilience? How do you sort of help students with sort of professional resilience?
Well, it's embedded in everything, and the best thing to do. I mean, if you run a well-being or a mindfulness sort of session, which we do, a few people pop in, but it doesn't fundamentally change anything. And some people don't like the word mindfulness, or even the word resilience is used a lot.
Yeah.
That's why we've called WaterBear because it's I don't know how many people know this, but it's a tardigrade. It's its Latin name. It's a little creature.
Yeah.
And a WaterBear, its defining characteristic is that it's indestructible almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's extremely resilient.
Yeah.
So we embed it in all the lectures, and it's a focus of sort of the culture of the place rather than we're going to do mindfulness today, And everyone gets one-to-one mentoring, and we just have small class sizes. We deal with everyone as an individual, and everyone's on some spectrum. Do you know what I mean? We're all slightly neurodiverse in particular different areas.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the best thing you can do, actually, before you start thinking about what your diagnosis is, or whatever what the label is, just treat everyone as an individual. That's a really good place to start and try and work out where they're going and help them get there. But I do think the stuff that works actually is stuff we've known about for thousands of years. Breathing is being aware of your breath in that kind of yoga sort of way can make a fundamental difference to people's music performance before you even think about the psychological benefits of it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Time.
Yeah.
They hit the instrument better, and it's got more flow to it. Get into a state of flow quicker. And mindfulness, breathing, being able to the biggest thing for musicians is being able to separate themselves from overthinking.
Yes.
And because we practice instruments, that's a skill that you can practice, and it can become. You can go from being clinically depressed, I've seen it many times, someone being very seriously clinically depressed, to almost a full recovery in a very short space of time if they can just develop that skill. It can make a lot of difference real quick.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, and I think, like you said, just calling mindfulness sometimes, it is not the way forward, but to embed it and just to understand that. Being mindful it's not about sitting down with your eyes closed and breathing. It's just about paying attention to the moment that you're in, and that, like you said, that's the transformative thing. It's just being there, being present, fully present. That is mindfulness. That is what it is.
Completely. And musicians know it.
Yeah.
Because if you say that state of flow, you've just done a gig, you haven't had to think about it. It's all gone on automatic pilot. You've been playing.
Absolutely.
Stuff that you didn't know that's it. That's what mindfulness is.
Yeah, and your pain goes. If you've got pain, all that disappears during your performance. You're not even aware that any of those things. It's.
But you see, that state is available to people in their everyday life. Now you can approach business like that, which is what I do. Because if you stop to overthink it, you'll just terrify yourself into either an inactivity or an early grave. So you need to get into a state of flow with your business and actually a lot of your life. Your brain will solve problems without you having to chew. I mean, if you're having a circular thought, worrying about something, if you have that thought twice, that's a massive waste of energy because you already thought it once.
Yes.
so you can trust yourself, your subconscious. And if you look at people who do amazing things like Einstein or Jimi Hendrix, they sort of instinctively know this and they sort of trust it as a problem-solving mechanism.
Yeah.
Let's not think about it. Let's let my subconscious sort it out, and it always does.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. At some point, you have to change your mind.
No, and a lot of the time, the stuff that we are frightened about is stuff we've just entirely created ourselves and put pressure on ourselves. That's really common with musicians. They've got something in their head.
Yeah.
And actually, if you just take it away, actually, you really need to hit 100,000 followers on Instagram this month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe 80,000 will be all right, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, there's rabbit holes. You get,
very much so.
Yeah.
Well, when you were dealing with life's problems, and I'm always sitting with creatives, sort of saying, where do we go from here, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the conversation, we kind of go, we've actually all of us only really got one problem in life, which is managing our own psychology.
Yeah.
And that was the Shakespeare quote about nothing is either good or ill except thinking makes it so, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I spend the whole of my life trying to get out of my own way. I think that's.
And the other thing is success is fascinating. I mean, when my band was called Little Angels, and it was late 80s, early 90s period. And so we had a number one album in 1993. So you'd think that would be great. And in my idea as a young person, I thought, well, it's kind of sorted now because we've had this success, so therefore we'll get to make a few more records and, the pressure's off. No. The very next day, it's like, well, how do you follow that? What the next album is going to be number 8 or something, and then you're on your way down, and it was immense. And all successes is just more stuff going on, and more hassle, more problems, more challenges, more issues, and there's never this sort of destination that you think when you're young, I'll get a record deal and we'll be sorted. I'll pay my mortgage off, we'll be sorted. I'll buy a house, we'll be sorted. And
no, it doesn't. It's funny. In the very first episode, I was talking to Sam Brown, and after she had great success with Stop. But she said actually, that success stopped all the creativity because she spent the next 6 months just doing interviews and didn't really make any music, and was just just doing performing that song on TV shows and it wasn't until she just came up with an album that she wanted to make and parted from her record company, and she said said creatively it was the best thing she ever did, but obviously in terms of sort of the financial stuff, it just sort of all suddenly disappeared. It's
really interesting, and people have this idea that big gigs are really amazing to do, and they kind of are, but walking out and there's a huge stadium or something. It is good fun, and I do. The thing I enjoy about it is actually the volume that you can play at, which you can't do anymore. But I used to do it at 30. And it was like and the monitors are great. And it was like standing next to Concorde, so I enjoyed the sonic part of it.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's no different to a pub gig. If you play well and you're in tune with the rhythm section and it's all in flow, you're going to really love it.
Absolutely.
And if you're playing if it's a little bit clunkier, you're not going to have such a good gig, and the enjoyment level is very similar.
It is, and
actually,
sorry, go on.
Well, actually, in some ways, the smaller gigs are more fun because you can see people. It's not just
and you have that connection, which is again, that great thing that music does, connects people. It's, and I think it's very interesting. Where do you start? You start talking about success, and I think ultimately you have to bring it down to your own personal success. How do you feel? And it's
completely.
Like you were saying right at the beginning of this interview, you're talking about all the technical stuff and how that's one thing, but actually how do you feel when you play? What's that? And ultimately that's the really important thing, isn't it? It's how it makes you feel.
Well, you only have to look at the suicides with people who've had huge international careers over a couple of decades.
Yeah.
Well, why isn't Kurt Cobain here anymore? And there's been a succession of very high-profile singers in rock, hasn't there, who've taken their lives. Why is that happening? Well, because success isn't a solution. It's you have to be happy, whatever your situation.
But I think that is the success, and I think it's this societal view of success in music, and that isn't helped by these TV shows, and that doesn't help people's understanding of what success really is. I mean, you run a workshop with an inclusive group. You've got disabled musicians, non-disabled musicians working together, and they create something, and they feel that success. Well, that's that is, you can't buy that. That's beautiful, and that's genuine success, and that's that feeling of real accomplishment, and creating something from nothing, and you can't top it. You can't top it anywhere.
It is, and also the magic of when people make great art, it changes people's lives. And for young bands, you're only ever one song away from changing a lot of people's lives and your own life. That is the magic of rock and roll. It's kind of, and it's rare. Great songs are really rare.
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of what we're all chasing. And I don't think the thing that's been a frustration in my life actually is not actually very talented as a musician, but I've worked really, really hard. I turned myself into a guitar player by force of will. And then by the time I realised that other people were a lot more talented than me, it was kind of too late. I was 25 and sort of established, but I've always found it in education, I identify with those people in the room who don't have fast hands and don't have golden ears. And, because if you do plug away, that will always beat a lazy talent, that just putting the hours in, and caring and wanting to get a result. You'll get there in the end, kind of thing. But you might find a different niche to say, in my world, Guthrie Govan or someone is an example of incredible natural talent,
Sure,
well.
Yeah.
Years of practice, of course, interesting.
It is fascinating. So what's going on with WaterBear at the minute then? What are you up to?
Well, we're about to open another college up north, near where I grew up, Scarborough, near there in a big city. And we'll announce it on July the 1st.
Fantastic.
So that's exciting. So we've sort of done the lease and we've taken the floor out and all that kind of stuff. And Sheffield reminds me of Brighton 20 years ago in that it's got a sort of fresh. It's at a sort of stage where it's about to develop. There's lots of empty property where you wouldn't get that anymore in Brighton. There is no other music colleges there that are doing what we do. So it's really exciting, and it's lovely to be able to sort of go back north where I came from. I think I just said where it was then, didn't I? I was supposed to be keeping it secret.
You did. I'll edit that out. Don't worry.
It's all right. It doesn't matter really. It'll be out the back in a month. But yeah, it's nice to be doing that up there. And then,
and are you keeping
Brighton's nearly full. Brighton's nearly full because we don't want to keep growing like we did before. We want a college.
That's what I was going to say. You're keeping those numbers small and yeah, but not tiny. One of 3 colleges that have 600 students in each one, 500 or 600, because then you've got a full music community. You've got people studying out front sound, event management, artist management, people who know how to set labels up as well as all the different artists and a wide range of genres. But you keep the class sizes real small. So, we take an intake of 150 to 200 on the 1 year of a degree, and that break down into loads of little classes of 15. Nice.
And we found over the years with the previous colleges, that's the magic sweet spot where you've got vibe, excitement, but you still know everyone's name. So that's the plan. And that'll probably be, I'm in my mid-50s now. And I want to be able to stand back from it and be really proud of it and know that every student who comes to us, we do our absolute best for them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And this will be my last one. It does take it out of you a bit. So, it's like anything,
No, it sounds great. It sounds great, and it sounds like it's in a really good place, and
it's been brilliant. Actually.
Yeah, congratulations on the new college. That's really great.
Oh, thanks, man. The thing I'm most proud of is the team spirit with the people on the course and the staff. I've never gone to work every day and gone, I can't work with these people. I can't wait. So yeah, super proud of that.
That's great. Well,
great, good stuff.
That's brilliant. That feels like a kind of place that we've come to an end of this bit of the conversation. Maybe we can catch up again another time and sort of follow through on the new college and see what's going on. But
that would be great. That'd be great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Bruce. It's been really interesting chatting with you, and I think we are the same age and probably started working in the business at the same time. And
that's great.
It's nice to kind of
still doing, and that's what you want for everybody, a lifetime in music, and it'll take different twists and turns as
absolutely.
Your life has done and my life has done. But if you want to have a life in music, you can, especially now more than ever. It's a good time to do it.
Very much so.
Good stuff.
Thanks.
All right. Nice to talk, Michael. See you soon.
Take care, Bruce. Thanks so much for your time.
And you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. You've been listening to my conversation with Bruce Dickinson from WaterBear College of